I'd like to welcome you to the Lighthouse Project as we start a new series called Did You Know? Amazing stories, amazing facts, amazing interesting stories that maybe you never knew about, never heard about, never even thought about. And we're not going to do too many of these classes. Every once in a while we'll throw them in, but probably for the next month there's going to be some very interesting topics. Before we get started on this class, we would like to give an honorable mention to our class sponsors. Part of our Issachar and Zevulun sponsorship, we have H&M Builders doing this in memory of their grandfather, in honor of the Dornbush family. Be'ezrat Hashem, that the Dornbush family have a lot of bracha v'atzlacha b'chomas yedehem. Be'ezrat Hashem, that they have a lot of happiness in the wedding of the Joseph Dornbush coming up in a few weeks, and they should have immense simcha and nachat from the new baby girl of Shena Badina. Also, for our good friend, a righteous woman from the East Coast, Esther Bouton, who is doing this in honor of her sons, Yonatan, Michael, Eliyahu, and Shalom ben Esther. Be'ezrat Hashem, that an entire family have a lot of bracha v'atzlacha, aliyah mala mala b'torah mitzvot u'ma'asim tovim, a lot of parnasa, a lot of simcha, a lot of success, a lot of nachat from the children, and Be'ezrat Hashem, that the Torah be the center of this family's home. We also have a good friend of mine from Colorado, Guy Mordechai. Chazaku Baruch, Guy. I love you, brother. He's doing this for the refuah shelema of Maya Batruti, who gave birth to a baby boy this morning, and for the speedy recovery of Tinok ben Maya, that was born 2 months premature. And also for the safety of our brave soldiers and all Am Yisrael with everything that's going on in the Holy Land the last few days. He every week he has a special type of dedication that is connected to the lesson. It's unbelievable. It's like he's preparing the class with me. And for the refuah shelema of Menachem Mendel bat Sarah Batya and the word of Fega bat Rezo, and to the refuah shelema of Simcha bat Shula. Okay, let's get started. So, the reason why we're starting this series of Did You Know is because I was thinking. We were just finishing this whole 49-day journey of the Omer, of the character refinement, the spiritual refinement. We came to the apex, to the peak of the understanding, it's all about unity, left off, being together, being united. That's what's going to bring the Geulah. That's what's going to bring Hashem to bring us into to the state that we want to be, the ultimate place to be as a Jew, to be a righteous Jew in Am Yisrael with the Melech Mashiach over us. And I started to think, the Geulah, this whole redemption that we're all thinking of, that we're all waiting for, that we're all wishing for, what do we need to do, and everything that we need to do to merit it, to even be part of that club? And once you start thinking about Geulah, once you start thinking about the redemption, then different concepts come into the picture. You start thinking about Mashiach, you start thinking about Gog and Magog, the Armageddon, you start thinking about the third Bet HaMikdash, and you also start thinking about Tchiyat HaMetim, the resurrection of the dead. And us being classified as the generation of the Geulah. This is our generation. All this is going to happen during our time. And the prophecy of Gog and Magog and the predictions that are going to come out of this time period, and the storyline of the 70 nations of the world against this tiny Am Yisrael, and this looming war over the land of Israel and obviously Yerushalayim. As you can see, everybody has something to say about that little piece of real estate, the little dot on the map on the world. There's one hidden story that you might not have heard of. A prophecy that is destined to come true. A prophecy that speaks of the lost tribes of Israel. Rather, the 10 lost tribes of Israel. So right away you tell me, I thought there were 12. That's right. There are 12 tribes. But this story is only of the 10 lost tribes of Israel. This will be an eye-opening lesson that will truly be fascinating. Not just to hear, but to actually live it out at the end of days during the times of Geulah. And tonight, we will answer questions like, which 10 tribes out of the 12 are we speaking of?
Which tribe?
Yeah, which? There's 10 of them. There's 12 of them. What 10 are we discussing tonight? Where are they today? Have they ever been seen or found? What is the connection of the Sabbation River? And why is it called the Sabbation? Where are Moshe Rabbeinu's descendants? And what's their connection to this story? Who is Eldad Hadani? And what will the end look like? These and many more questions will be answered tonight as we begin the journey of the lost 10 tribes of Israel. So, as of today, you should know there's about 15 million Jews in the world. You could cut it down the middle and say half are in Israel, half are in the United States.
You mean around the world?
Well, around the world, and we'll give you the breakdown. About 6.5 million to 7 are in Israel, and about 5.7 to 6.8 are in the United States. And this is of the past maybe year or two, these numbers. And then there's like the top 10 list. France has 400,000, Germany has a few 100,000, you have Belgium, Argentina, Russia. Many places have a nice collection of Jews in the hundreds of thousands, and then of course there's a lot more throughout the world that are dispersed. But overall we're about 15 million at the moment, give or take a few 100,000. And at the end of the time there will be a kibbutz galuyot. What's a kibbutz galuyot? The gathering of all the people that are living in diaspora. Jews from all over the world will come back to Eretz Yisrael. So there are many prophecies and many midrashim have spoken of this particular coming back to Eretz Yisrael, that we come back on the wings of eagles. There'll be tunnels underneath the ground that we will use as pathways to come up to the Holy Land. Airlifted synagogues that go straight from here and go to Jerusalem, and they form the beautiful city of Yerushalayim. The Goyim will fly us into Yerushalayim. They will carry us on their shoulders and hand deliver us to the Mashiach. Here are your Jews, here are your people. Wow. And all the Jews from all over the world will unite again and be a nation as one. All in Eretz Yisrael. And during that time, they'll be there to fight, to protect, and to be part of that war, the war of Gog and Magog. Am Yisrael will have a share in it. They will have to defend themselves. And it will be a war that God will once again perform the miracle of the few winning over the many. We will have miracles that will eclipse Yetziat Mitzrayim and Kriyat Yam Suf. The splitting of the sea and the 10 plagues, we won't mention it anymore. It'll be yesterday's news. The miracles are going to be so great that we don't have to mention the old ones. They really say, look how we don't stop saying Zecher Yetziat Mitzrayim. Every single day we have to remember all the miracles that happened in Mitzrayim. Imagine, it's going to come to a point that it's not going to be relevant anymore. It's going to dwarf it in comparison. We actually pray for it every day. If you pay attention to Amidah, I'll just read this particular beracha so you can understand that part of our daily prayer includes us praying. Praying means that we are yearning. We're telling God this is one of the things that we want every single day, 3 times a day. Which is the beracha of Mekabetz Nitchei Amo Yisrael. It says, Teka b'shofar gadol lecherutenu. Blow on that big shofar so it can announce our freedom. By the way, that shofar is the horn from Akedat Yitzchak. In Akedat Yitzchak, there was one ram's horn that was saved for the end of the time, and this is the one. In the time of Mashiach, the shofar that's going to be blown is a specific one. It's the one from Akedat Yitzchak. V'sa netz lekabetz galuyotenu, and create a miracle as you gather all of us from the diaspora. V'kabetzenu yachad me'arba kanfot haaretz aretzenu, and gather us collectively from all the 4 corners of the world to our land, Eretz Yisrael. Baruch atah Hashem mekabetz nitchei amo Yisrael, the one who gathers the dispersed nation of Israel. We pray for it every day. We pray for it because it's going to happen. It's going to happen. This is one event, just like you see now, the exodus of the people all throughout the planet. You turn on the TV, 500,000 people on foot walking across a border because they're trying to avoid terrorism or war. And then you see another 500,000 people going in one direction. You see all this movement of the people. Eventually there'll be the movement of the Jewish people, where we all, from all the corners of the world, come to one place, Israel. Now, the 15 million Jews that we're speaking of right now, there are just a section of the population that will merit to be part of the Geulah, but it's not all of the Jewish nation. They are actually just 2.5 tribes of Am Yisrael. The 15 million Jews that we just spoke about are just the tribe of Yehuda and Binyamin. 2. And a little bit of Shevet Levi, which we'll discuss in a little bit. Where are the other 10 tribes?
China.
That's one place. Now, in order to clarify this,
Sabbath, like you mentioned.
yes,
To Olel Gedotav, he was very rowdy.
yes,
And they said that they drowned in Sabbath, or Sabbath took them far away to the far east.
very good. You're jumping a few pages ahead, but no, but it's exactly that. So in order to understand where these other 10 tribes are, we have to do a little bit of a history lesson. Let's start from the beginning. So originally, when the Jewish people left the desert and came and conquered the land of Canaan, and it got split up into various parts of Eretz Yisrael, we had all the tribes living there. And during the kingdom of Shaul, King David, and King Solomon, all Am Yisrael was as one. But right after King Shlomo, right after King Solomon, things changed. The land of Israel got divided into 2 kingdoms, the northern part and the southern part. In the southern part, you had Yehuda and Binyamin, with Yerushalayim as its capital. And on the northern part, you had all the other 10 tribes, with Samaria as its capital. And each one had a different king. Now, without making it too much of a history lesson, let's just say that the northern part is the part that we want to talk about today. They had an evil king that made it difficult for them to come and visit Bet HaMikdash. This is the Yerovam ben Nevat. He's the one that put out all the idols along the way. He was an evil king, and during that time that the Jews were under his rule, not only were they getting distanced from the religion, but they also began to behave in the typical way when a person starts to move away from his spirituality, he starts to give into his physicality, into his desires. So during that time, you have to understand that also the Jews were immensely successful. They had money, they had land, they had cattle, they had wives, they had children, they had everything. This is the heyday of the Jew. Everything is going perfect.
Even after the kingdom split.
Yes. And that famous pasuk that you hear so often, which reads, Vayishman Yeshurun Vayvat. It talks about Yeshurun, that's the Jewish nation, that it got fat. Vayishman. What do you mean it got fat? It got comfortable. It got satiated with the good life, with food, with fancy food, with fatty food. Vayvat. And it kicked the religion, as if to say to kick the religion, or it actually just started to deflect anything that had to do with Judaism. Shamanta avita kasita. The pasuk continues to say that you fattened, you got wider, and you neglected. Vaita sheloah osehu, and you deprived or you left your God, the one that created you. Vainabel tzur ishato, and this whole rock of salvation is no longer belongs to you. And in layman's terms, what happened over there? They started to drink a lot. And after they drank a lot, they started to have perform adultery, and later on, the adultery became more specific to having adultery with married men and married women. So once you cross that threshold, you're very far off, and that was the norm. It was an accepted norm in Am Yisrael. So that's what was going on the northern part of Israel. And later on came this other king called Sancheriv. And it was King Shalmaneser. He was the king of Assyria. He invaded the northern kingdom and he besieged the capital named Samaria. And all the tribes went under his control, and he systematically, methodically, and over a period of time, started to kick out the Jews from the land. And since then, we haven't heard of them, and we haven't had any trace of them. It wasn't overnight, it took some time, but that's basically how the northern part, which by the way, take all the 10 tribes and classify it under Ephraim, got lost. The other 2.5 tribes, Yehuda and Binyamin, well, after the destruction of the first temple, we had a 70-year gap. They went to Bavel. That's the whole story of the Talmud Bavli, Talmud Yerushalmi. They had over there a lot of rabbis, a lot of yeshivas. That's where a lot of the Judaism got developed. And when they came back, those are the people that came back. Those are the tribes that came back from Bavel to Eretz Yisrael, not the other 10 tribes. Midrash Talpiot, as a matter of fact, if you tell me that, so you could ask, if all of us come from just these 2 tribes of Binyamin and Yehuda, how do you explain Ashkenaz and Sephardic? How do you explain the light skin and the dark skin? How do you explain the different different faces of all the Jews? So the rabbis have told us that, from these 2 tribes, the reason why we have Ashkenaz and Sephardic, by the way, they say that the source of the Ashkenazim is Binyamin, and the source of the Sephardic is Yehuda. And the reason why we have different color variations and different languages and different dialects and different faces and different color skin is because when we went through different cultures, or we went through different areas of the world, the geographical positioning of where we stayed, because we know that the land changes a person, but there was also intermarriage. And the intermarriage is what brought in that variety of people. Now, many have tried to search for the 10 tribes. Many.
When you say search, is it DNA? Is it physical evidence?
DNA, let's just say, is about 100 years ago. We're talking about thousands of years they've been looking for them. And both Jews and Gentiles have searched. Governments and kingdoms have spent exuberant amounts of money trying to find the lost tribes of Israel. And many of them came up with traces of the tribes, where there are a lot of people that don't claim to be Jewish, but act Jewish and have Jewish customs. And they don't even know what they do. They just say, our forefathers did it, so we're doing it. That's all they have. There's customs like lighting candles on Friday night. They have customs like fasting on the 10th of the month every month. In other words, there's the 10th of the month is usually Yom Kippur. It's on the 10th of Tishrei. In order to remember Yom Kippur, they fast on the 10th of every month. And they also fast on the Rosh Chodesh. Different customs that are very similar.
They have the same lunar calendar with leap years and all that.
I didn't look into that. I don't know if they have a lunar calendar, but they do fast on the 10th of every month. Many of them rest on Shabbat. Many of them also congregate on Shabbat. They could have gone together any other day, but they get together on Shabbat. There are some that believe in the book of Moses, but pray in mosques. There are some that actually wear garments that look identical to tzitzit. They have the stripe and they even have the tassels. However, due to assimilation, they have lost their identity, but they still have a trace of Judaism within them. You'd be amazed where you find these traces of Jews. The lost tribes are said to be found in the Lambda tribe in Africa, where they blow the shofar once a year. In the Phalashas people in Ethiopia, the Pelashim, which are supposed to be the descendants of Shlomo HaMelech and Queen Sheba, and also part of Shevet Dan. And Shevet Dan, a lot of the people that are of a darker skin color claim that they are from Shevet Dan. But how can you say that we don't have any dark-skinned people as the 12 children of Yaakov? But they say of the intermarriage of the time that they were there, and also the mixing of Queen Sheba, which we know that she was dark. As a matter of fact, the Ethiopians are a large sect of Israel right now. You know, I heard a story not too long ago of an Ethiopian group that were practicing the Torah, and they were and they believed that they knew that they were living in Ethiopia. They know they were from the Shevet of Dan, and they knew that there was a Jerusalem and there was a Bet HaMikdash. And when they finally came to Israel, and they were so elated, they were so happy, and they came and they asked the famous question. It's like, you just won the Super Bowl. Where do you want to go? Disneyland, right? They asked him, you're now in Israel. Where do you want to go? They told him, Bet HaMikdash. They told him, it's destroyed. And they ripped their clothes and they cried on the ground and they couldn't believe. It was such a heart-wrenching moment to see Ethiopians that had just made the Aliyah to feel, and you see a real Jew when he hears for the first time the Bet HaMikdash, to believe the Bet HaMikdash was around, that it got destroyed. What an image. But true story. There's a long history of Bukharia, or the Bukharian, that there are also their hidden history and evidence that they're part from the lost tribes. We have the tribes of Menashe in India. There's tribes in China called the China Min that also consider them from being from Menashe. In Japan, in Afghanistan, and until today they're still keeping items like Nida, where the women are considered unholy for a certain period of time because of their menstrual cycle. Or Yibum, where if a person is married and he dies before he has children, and the brother needs to marry the wife in order to procreate, in order to continue the lifeline or the gene pool of his family, and he has to name the kid that is born under his brother's name. That is such a Jewish item. It's a very unique Jewish item. Yet you go to the middle of Afghanistan, that's one of their things. certain foods, and certain people that pray to the direction of Yerushalayim. There's another sect of Jews called the Anusim. The Anusim are the ones that at a certain time in history, when the Jews were persecuted, they were forced to convert. They had to. In order to stay alive, they had to. You had that in Spain, you had it in the pogroms, in the Crusades. They're really Jews. They just tried to save their lives. And those are called Anusim. They're out there too. They're going to count in the time of Geulah. They're hidden.
They probably don't even know it.
They don't even know. However, there is a movement right now in Portugal and in Spain that is saying, you are Anusim. You don't know you're Jewish and you are Jewish and you have a right of return and you have all these rights that you can claim and you can get money and you can get benefits. Also, there's a huge, huge influx of Latin Jews lately. Have you noticed? These are the Anusim. But I'm talking about the ones that don't even know at the end of time are going to be revealed. And by the way, there's many, many, many fascinating videos about this on YouTube. Just put the 10 lost tribes of Israel. You'd be surprised. There's more Christian videos about the lost 10 tribes than there are ones made from Jews. From Jews, you have rabbis talking about it. They have the video, the effects. They have the on-site video shoot. It's amazing, but it's very informative because the Christians are very invested into the end of time. They also want to be part of the revelation and the Geulah. They want it to be part of their. They see the Mashiach as a different entity, but they want that to be. They know that it's going to be part of their Geulah. So they talk about it and they promote it and they help it out, and they're the ones that fund all the research to find these people, because that brings the Geulah closer. A lot of money has been put into this. But this is not the lost tribes that we speak of. All these various sects of people that could have come from this tribe and could have come from that tribe are not the lost 10 tribes of Israel. The lost 10 tribes of Israel is a more interesting story. So, after the destruction of the first temple, when the Jews were exiled and they came back during the time of the second temple, again, there was just 10 tribes. All the other tribes, after the exile, after the taking over of the northern part, they never made it back. So where did they go? And are they to the point that they're so unrecognizable that we wouldn't know that they're Jews? But that's just what we described. So who are these Jews? So in Melachim Bet, it says over there that the Jews were dispersed to Har Gozan. Har Gozan, the Rambam says, it's actually a place by the Sabbation River. And beyond this river is where the 10 lost tribes of Israel are living today. So, before we talk about the Sabbation River, you have to understand that the 10 tribes got split up into groups of 3s. There's 3 groups. And the distance it is from Israel to the Sabbation River is the same distance where each group of tribes is distanced from each other. So they're very far away from each other. So you have 3 living together, 4 living together, 3 living together, and then we have Benjamin and Yehuda, which is all of us. The first one will say, the first group is behind the Sabbation River. The second group is behind the cloud, which I will describe in a second. And the third group is called Daphne of Antiochia. Let's start with the first one. So, why is the Sabbation River called Sabbation? It comes from the word Shabbaton. This is a river that keeps Shabbat. This is a river that is about 100 meters wide, and the location, some say Afghanistan, some say China, some say Africa, but it's a river that for 6 days it throws up rocks. It throws up all rocks from the water, and on Shabbat it rests.
Amazing.
That's why it's called Shabbaton. And beyond this river are the lost tribes. Now this river, I want to give you a little bit more insight about it, has been mentioned in many different places. As a matter of fact, the Rambam writes that the story of the 10 tribes is 100% true and will come to fruition at the end of days, where everyone will see these lost 10 tribes. And the river Sabbation is a real river, and his own grandfather has been there and seen it. The Rambam testifies. In Igrot Rambam, you can find it. The Gemara speaks of this river. The Gemara talks of a story of an exchange between Rabbi Akiva and Tenius Rufus. And Tenius Rufus used to like to come and challenge Rabbi Akiva when it came to Judaism. And he would tell him, Ma yom bayamim. He says, what do you guys make such a big deal out of Shabbat? What's the difference between Shabbat and Tuesday? It's the same thing. It's a regular day. Give it up already. Shabbat. So Rabbi Akiva answers him, my gever bagvarim. What about you? What's so special about you from every other man? He says, what's special about me? I'm a king. God chose me to be a king. So Rabbi Akiva responds to him and he says, and God chose Shabbat as the holy day. The same way that he chose you as a king, he chose Shabbat as a special day. So they went back and forth about the importance of the day. And just like God chose him for a king, similarly he chose Shabbat for a day. And he says, you know what? Let me show you something. And he takes him to the river Sabbation. And he shows him, here is a river that keeps Shabbat. And they stood in front of the river, and right before Shabbat entered, the river stopped rumbling and throwing up stones, and it rested. And as soon as Shabbat was over, it would start to rumble again. There's another story of this river in Me'am Loez, a commentary on the Chumash, where in the laws of Shabbat, I believe in Parashat Shemot, he speaks about a story of a Portuguese man that was living in Portugal, and he went to the Jewish square. And in the Jewish square, he saw Jews that weren't keeping Shabbat. And he happened to have in his possession a bottle or a jar that had water and sand from the Sabbation River. And that water and sand would twirl inside the jar all week long, and on Shabbat it'd rest and it would settle. And this Portuguese man would go in the Jewish square on Shabbat when people were not keeping it, and would say, Jews, even the river rests on Shabbat. Even the river knows that it's Shabbat. How dare you work? He was a goy, he wasn't Jewish. But he used this water from the river to give them tochacha, to rebuke them. There are reports that the river has stopped keeping Shabbat as of 150 years ago. Since Am Yisrael has defiled the Shabbat, it got to the point that the river either dried up or is no longer keeping it the same way. However, in search of this river, HaKadosh Baruch Hu did an absolute chesed with me, and he showed it to me. There's a video on YouTube. You can find it two different ways. You could either find it in Hebrew where it says Aseret HaShevatim, the 10 tribes, and there's a rabbi over there that shows a video of the river, or you can also look it up as Afghan River of Rocks. And you see a river of no water, just rocks, not on an incline, not on a decline, straight, pushing rocks along for a very, very long period of time, and it goes into a watery river. Huge boulders, huge rocks, and they're jumping out and they're moving. Absolutely amazing. Look it up. It's mamash mechazek. So we have the first third of the 10 tribes living beyond this river. Let's talk about the second third of the 10 tribes. And this is a even more interesting story. This is about the sons of Moshe from the tribe of Levi. So, Bnei Moshe, according to Yonatan ben Uziel, who comments on a midrash and says that even though, if you guys remember, there was a period where the Jewish people upset God to the point where He wanted to destroy them, and He said, "I'll start over anew with you, Moshe." And Moshe says, if you are going to do that, erase me from your book. These are my people. Don't start new with me. If we're going to continue, we're going to continue with Am Yisrael. What a leader. However, Kadosh Baruch Hu kept His word. At that time, there were about 600, we know when we came out of Egypt, we came out as 600,000, adults that counted. Of course, we were in the millions with the women and the children. But even though Hashem forgave the Jews for the Egel, He still kept His word from starting with His nation anew. And how did He do that? Well, we're going to learn together a Perek in Tehillim, the 137th chapter in Tehillim, that you can find in any Tehillim book, but you can also find it in Tikkun Chatzot. And you can also find it on everybody's lips in the time of Tisha B'Av. And it goes like this. This Perek talks about the tribe of Levi right after they were kicked out of Bet HaMikdash and they were exiled. So imagine, this is the tribe that worked inside Bet HaMikdash and they witnessed the destruction of it, the burning of it. And they are right now outside of it. They're not even in Eretz Yisrael. They are in Bavel. They are in exile. And these are the words that are coming out of their mouth. Al Naharot Bavel, Sham Yashavnu Gam Bachinu Bezochenu Tzion. He says, here we are sitting by the sideway of the river of Babylon, and over there we are sitting and we are crying as we remember Zion. Al Aravim Betocha Talinu Kinorotenu. We used to have these large trees where we would hang up our violins. Because remember, they used to play music in Bet HaMikdash. They were the musicians. They were the singers. כי שם שאלונו שובנו דברי שיר ותוללנו שמחה שירו לנו משיר ציון. He says over here, our captives are asking us to take the instrument that we would exalt God, and they're asking us, sing us a song. Play us a tune. איך נשיר את שיר אדוני על אדמת נכר? They say, how can we sing the song of God on a foreign land? אם אשכחך ירושלים, תשכח ימיני. If I forget you, Jerusalem, forget my right hand. When you say my right hand, your right hand is the right hand that you do everything with. That's your skill, your strength. Say, if I forget you, Yerushalayim, let me forget my skill. Everyone has a skill. If he's a blacksmith, if he's a jeweler, if he's a carpenter, if he's a baker, he says, if I forget Yerushalayim, let me forget all my skills of being a baker, of being a jeweler, of being a blacksmith. In other words, forget the thing that you are all about. תדבק לשוני לחיקי, אם לא אזכרכי, אם לא אעלה את ירושלים בראש שמחתי. Let my tongue stick to the top of its, to the roof of my mouth, if I don't remember you, if I don't mention you on the heights of my happiness. Zechor Adonai livnei Edom et Yom Yerushalayim ha'omrim aru aru ad hayesod ba. He says, Hashem, remember the days when Edom came to Jerusalem and they destroyed it to its core. Bad Bavel hasheduda asher shishalem lach et guvnech shegamat lanu. It says, one day we will avenge, one day we will revenge everything that you did to us. Asher she'orchetz v'nitpetz et olalach harasa. Blessed he, or exalted is he, the one that takes your babies and smashes them on a rock. Ooh, that last line is a killer. Jews usually don't talk like that, but they say little evil babies go up to be evil men. He says, Anshe Bavel, look what they're doing to us. It's better that we destroy them from from birth. You can understand what a strong emotions that they have right now. So now, what happened over here? I'll give you the backside to it, the backstory to it. When they asked them to play the musical instruments, they took their thumb, they put it in their mouth, and they bit their thumb off. They took their thumbs and they bit them off. Why? So they won't be able to play. You can't play an instrument without your thumb. How are you going to hold the pick? It's very difficult. Just so they won't be able to do it. When Hashem saw that, he was impressed. Not only that, he remembered what he told Moshe. And we know Moshe comes from the tribe of Levi. The Kohanim are a different sect. So Kadosh Baruch Hu took all those Levites on a cloud and airlifted them from the river of Babylon straight to another section beyond the Sabbation River. Until today is where they live. And they have their own court system, they have their own king, they have animals, they have fields, they have huge homes, they are immensely rich. And right now they're at about 600,000. They live to 120 years, they keep the Torah, they keep the laws. Bnei Moshe, they are called. And they are there as well.
Like, it sounds very far-fetched.
Oh, wait till you hear the end.
Okay.
Wait till you hear the end. You have to understand the Geulah is not going to make sense.
No, but you're talking about now.
It's now. It's now. I know you want to see it on Google Earth. I know you want to see this river and you want to see the people and you want to say, how is it that these Bnei Moshe are still alive and living behind this river? They are meant to be hidden. They are imprisoned. They're not for this time. They are being actually protected.
But what about the Leviim that are Leviim that they say I am a Levite?
That's the half that stayed with Menashe. I'm sorry, with Binyamin Yehuda. We said it's Binyamin, Yehuda, and half of Levi.
Okay, got it.
Now, people have tried to find them, and Hashem makes it that they're not found. Now, even though that Binyamin and Yehuda are scattered all over the world, there's been times when many people, many rabbis wanted to find these lost tribes. And many have tried, and a few succeeded. There were times in Jewish history where the Jews were in trouble and they needed help, and they knew that if they brought a holy man from over the Sabbation River, he could help them out. There's a story of a wicked priest who challenged the Jews to say, bring me your best Jew and I will fight him, or I will challenge him in physicality, in knowledge, and if you win, I'll let you go. I'll cancel the decree to kill you. But if you lose, then you will die by the sword. And they sent a special rabbi, and he got to the Sabbation River, and he crossed it on Shabbat. And crossing it on Shabbat means that you violated Shabbat. And as soon as he crossed over, a very big man, very big shoulders, held him and told him, You violated Shabbat, you must die. He tells them it's pikuach nefesh. Pikuach nefesh, after he saved the Jewish people. He says, what is the story? And the story begins like this. He tells them of this wicked priest and what he's planning on doing. And he says, okay, we will send one of ours to your town. But now that you've come here, you can't go back. And as a matter of fact, before he went, the rabbis made him sign over a get to his wife. And he had to finalize everything like as if he's not coming back, because they knew that once he goes there, he can't come back. He told him, you're going to be here, you're going to eat with us, you're going to live with us, you're going to have a home, you're going to live to 120. There's no going back. And he agreed to save the Jewish nation. And one of the Bnei Moshe went, and he fought, and he won, and he succeeded, and it's documented. And it's documented both in Christianity, Christian literature, and Judaic literature. However, there's a famous story of Eldad Hadani. This is the most popular one if you want to know of the 10 tribes and a person that saw them all. There was one person. He came from the tribe of Dan. His name was Eldad, and his story is a strange one. It's something that probably, if anybody in Hollywood hears my class tonight, will probably make a movie of it in a couple of years. As a matter of fact, I didn't see the movie, but when I told one of my friends about the Bnei Moshe, how they're living behind the cloud, behind the river, he told me, "Did you see the movie The Black Panther?" I told him, "No." He goes to me, "That's exactly how it was." He goes, "That's where they live. They live beyond the river, behind the cloud." I go to him, maybe they know. They heard of Bnei Moshe. All of Hollywood is from the Torah. You could see.
So it's real.
It's real. Because Hollywood made it, it's real. But Eldad Hadani had a very, very interesting story. Get ready to hear an interesting story about a 9th century Jewish traveler who, according to his story, which was told by his ancestors, who were told by their ancestors from generation to generation up until today, until it was documented in the book, that the 10 tribes are not lost at all. That they are in this world and they've been visited by our great uncle, Eldad Hadani. So, Eldad begins his journey, and you have to understand that the tribe of Dan was an interesting tribe. They did not, at the time when the 10 tribes and the 2 tribes were sectioned off as north and south, there was wars between them too. Dan is the tribe that did not want to participate in fighting a civil war. So they actually left Israel on their own accord because they didn't want to fight. They weren't part of the actual exile. They personally exiled themselves not to kill another Jew, not to fight. So when they left and they wanted to find a safe place to live, they went by the way of Egypt, down the Nile River, and they settled in Ethiopia, in East Africa. That's why any of the black people that come into Judaism claim that they come from the Shevet of Dan. And the Shevet of Dan might have shown up as a Caucasian, but later on with the intermarriage, they became more of a darkened tribe. And while they were there, they had many wars with neighboring tribes, because that's the nature of the land. And the way that they would do it is that since there were so many wars all the time, they fought in groups. Meaning they went over there, and later on, the other tribes joined them. Dan, Naphtali, and Asher joined Dan, Gad, Naphtali, and Asher were all living in that area. And what they did is they took turns at fighting these wars, these tribal wars, where one tribe would fight the tribal wars for 3 months at a time and would bring back treasures, booty, or slaves, cattle, and the other 3 would sit down and learn Torah. and they would like do a little rotation, and that's how they would live. And the time that they learned the Torah, they only learned the 5 books of Moses and the Shoftim, the books of the prophets, but they did not have the tradition of Megillat Esther, and they don't celebrate the holiday of Purim, because that happened after they left the land. So they have no clue that it actually happened. As a matter of fact,
they study the oral Torah?
so here it says that being separated from the rest of the Jewish people, the 4 tribes did not know the great Jewish sages, not the Tanaim and not the Amoraim, which are the authors of the Mishnah and the Gemara. And they were not in possession of the Talmud. So in other words, Gad, Naphtali, Asher, and Dan were following just the Torah and had no idea of everything that transpired after that.
They have a lot of catching up to do.
Yes, they do. But they did observe the laws according to the way according to the way of the tradition that they got from Moshe to Yoshua to the Skenim, all the way down to the time that they were alive in Eretz Yisrael. And during that time, Eldad Hadani says that when he met with these groups of people, he would speak to them in Hebrew, but they would speak to him in a different language, in the holy tongue, like a biblical Hebrew. And that was for all the other tribes. They didn't speak a Hebrew, they spoke a biblical Hebrew. Eldad also backed up the story of the sons of Moses that lived behind the legendary river of Sambatyon. He met with them. Everything that we spoke about, which is with the cloud and how they live and their court, everything he was identical from his account. And he says that the sons of Moshe would interact with the other tribes. They actually had communication. Now they couldn't cross the river, but what they were able to do is to send pigeons. They would send pigeons with messages, and that's how they would communicate. On his way back home, he passed by Egypt, and there was a man that accompanied him from the tribe of Asher. He brought somebody back with him from the tribe. And as they're traveling back, you're going to love this, they were tailing a ship across the sea, and a big storm broke out, and the ship wrecked. And they began to float on a box. And they were saved. They hung on to this wooden board and floated into the water. Eventually, they came to the shore of a very wild country that was inhabited by cannibals. Man-eating natives. Now they say that the Asherite man, the man from the Shevet Asher, was fat. So he was like a big dinner for them. They cooked him up right away. Eldad was lean. He was very skinny. And he refused to eat because they're cannibals. So what they did, they said, let's fatten him up. Just like the way, you'd fatten up a turkey or a chicken. So he refused to eat. So since he refused to eat, he wasn't appealing to them. So eventually, that tribe of cannibals got attacked by a tribe of fire worshippers, and they grabbed him as captive. And later on, they brought him into the market, and they wanted to sell him. And who purchased him? And this was, they brought him to Azania in the land of Yemen, out of Teman, and where people would be sold as slaves. And a Jewish merchant from the tribe of Issachar, he bought Eldad and set him free. A Jew bought him and set him free. Now, Eldad continued his journey. He's still in search of the 10 tribes. And he continues through the Arabian Peninsula. and he crosses many deserts and mountains, where he finds the tribes of Ephraim and half the tribe of Menashe. And he finds them by the Ishmaelites, where?
Gaza.
No, and the land of Medes, which is in Persia, which was once ruled by the Assyrians and Babylonians. Also, he found the tribes of Reuven that were behind Har Paran, Mount Paran. And over there he saw that these particular group of tribes had Mishnayot and learned scriptures and Megillot on Shabbat. And they spoke Hebrew. He then continued to travel and he came across the city of Kairouan in North Africa. And over there, he met a large group of Jews. And when he started to, and they treated him as the Prince Eldad of Dan. And when he began to tell them the stories of all this traveling, they're like, what are you eating? What are you smoking? What is this? What is this story, this grand story that you're talking about? So, he actually sent a letter to Arav Gaon. There was a time of the Gaonim. There was a period in time where there was Gaonim. These were like against the leaders of the time. And the name of the Gaon of that time was Rabbi Zemach. And Rabbi Zemach backed up his story. And later on he came back and told the story to his family, to his community. Later on it was documented until today. Look at us, 2018, 5,778. We're still speaking of his journey, his discovery, his meeting of these 10 tribes. In conclusion, this is an amazing story of the Jews. Amazing story of the Jews and the lost tribes of Israel. So now, when you think of the Geulah, you can imagine it totally different. It's going to be a kibbutz galuyot. Today, when we think of the Jews, of how we look and who we are, and who we are, you better believe that when the Geulah comes, it's going to be completely different. You're going to have your African brother on the right, and your Chinese brother on the left, and your Afghan lost brother by the hundreds and the thousands. We're going to look completely different from the way we look today. We are going to be a complete sampling of the entire planet as one, all coming to say we're here for Mashiach, we're here for the Geulah, we're here for Hashem. Could you imagine? And that's just the people that are part of the known Galut. Now try to imagine the influx of these 10 hidden tribes. So the rabbis tell us the reason why they're going to come is because they're going to be a big component to us winning the war. The tribe of Reuven is going to be key. He's going to be the first one that's going to come during Mashiach ben Yosef, because we're going to have two Mashiachim, Mashiach ben Yosef, Mashiach ben David. In the time of Mashiach ben Yosef, Reuven is going to come, and they're going to be a huge agent in helping the Jewish people win the war. Win the war against all the enemies. We're going to be outnumbered. And later on, there's going to be the giants in stature and giants in holiness of the 600,000 of Bnei Moshe and the rest of the Jews around the world. Could you imagine the scene? We were thinking it's me, my family, and my neighbors, and a couple of cousins I know in Israel. That's the Geulah. It's a different picture. It's a completely different picture of the Jews that are dispersed, Bnei Moshe, and the last one, which was called what's the word that they gave it? The Daphne of Antiochia. That's the third group. And those are the Anusim. Those are the ones that assimilated. Those are the ones that we don't understand what the calculation is. We don't know God's calculations. But these are Jews that haven't been Jews for generations. And they're going to be part of it too. What are they going to look like? Who knows? Imagine what the Geulah is going to look like and what it's going to feel like when you're seeing these Jews of yesteryears coming into the picture with us, and then all these Jews that you would never think that they're Jews. I mean, we see on the internet every once in a while a group of Koreans praying Amidah in a building, or we see a group of people in Mexico singing Breslev songs, and you're like, what's going on? Chabad's really doing a good job. But in reality, you see that everywhere you're going to go around the world, there's a spark, that Jewish spark that's still in them, and that's what God is concerned with. He's concerned with that little Jewish spark that He deposited into the world, and He wants it back. The fact that it's covered by some sort of a bag of skin and bones that doesn't look a certain way, that's not what we're concerned with. We're concerned with the godly spark that at the time of Geulah is going to have a lot of different faces. So Be'ezat Hashem, when we merit to see this vision, this vision that's soon to be, that's soon to come, Be'ezat Hashem, that will merit to be part of the Geulah and to be part of this moment and part of this generation that is supposed to see more miracles than any generation has ever seen before. And Be'ezat Hashem, that we'll be able to be part of the Geulah, part of seeing Mashiach, and part of Tchiyat HaMetim.
Amen.
Hashem varech otchem v'sameach otchem. Have a great rest of the week.